Welcome back to the channel. I realized I hadn't actually done a video specifically around this, and someone actually commented on X around when I did the actual results for the income shares versus yield max. I didn't really call out the tax situation, and I tend to try and not bring the tax situation into equation because there's just so many different rules and regulations that play into it in terms of fund tax, retail tax, personal taxations. So I tried not to try and overcomplicate that review, but it did make me think about fund tax a little bit. And I know some of the community are aware of this, but a lot of you aren't, who potentially are not part of the community. And I thought, actually, do you know what would be a really good idea to do a video actually around the taxation within the income products that we have within Europe. So is 30% of your income lost crossing the Atlantic? So from the US to Europe. So the US withholding tax acts like a kind of almost like a hidden toll booth for European investors. So we're going to look at how Irish domiciled funds provide almost a tax efficient bridge to that. So if we talk about the tax trap itself, so US domiciled funds, so US income sources, let's say $100 dividends or options premium generated in the US, the IRS checkpoint, they take 30% withholding tax, your wallet gets $70. Only 7% arise before any local taxes apply. So this is quite a substantial impact, and this is compounded over time as well. So what you've got to realize is this isn't just a one-time hit, it's a constant hit on the fund. So why do fund managers use the Irish solution? So Ireland's specific tax treaty with the US creates a kind of almost like a safe harbor specifically for options income. So stocks and dividends, if we look at companies like, let's say, Coca-Cola or Apple provide these dividends, the US fund would be 30% tax, but with the Irish fund, it's 15% tax. So it's halved, right? So you've already saved quite a bit just by the fact that it's Irish domiciled. If we then look at it from an options perspective, now note that this is separate to dividends, so selling the calls, the puts, the capital gain, the US fund again would be 30% tax, but by using an Irish fund, there's zero tax, so it's full profit. Now, something to bear in mind is if this fund also holds underlying stocks as collateral, let's say Nvidia, Microsoft, any dividends received from those stocks are still subject to the US withholding tax, typically at the 15% target rate if it's an Irish fund or 30% otherwise. So only the options income portion is 0%. So that's a really important kind of nuance to be a little bit careful of. Obviously, some of those stocks don't produce any dividend incomes like Tesla and Coinbase, so it doesn't really impact them. But it's really important to understand that you're saving 30% by running the funds from Ireland. So that's a real big saving, something to bear in mind when you're looking at these funds. So the leak versus the lake. So how much water stays in the bucket over 10 years? And this is what I mean by the compounding drag. So if we started with, let's say, $10,000 at a 10% yield, just without any protection, 30%, you'd be down to 19,672. If we were to look at this from an Irish dividend fund perspective, it would be 22,610. And with zero tax, you've got 25K, almost 26K now, 25,937. That's quite a compounded advantage of a total savings over 10 years. That's $6,265 extra, quite a substantial amount over a period of time. Now, obviously, that sums could be multiple depending on how much you've started with. You get the idea that this can make a massive difference over time. So again, this was just for educational purposes only, but hopefully it represented and gave people an overview of what can happen with paying taxes and why I personally always say that I'm trying to minimize my taxes, whether that be through an ISA tax wrapper in the UK in terms of my investments, or whether it be trying to minimize any of the withholding taxes within a fund itself. Some of these things we have control over, some of them we don't, but I thought it was really useful to get a video out there to explain the concepts that occur. Okay, thanks for the 100% Club again to getting to the end of this video, and I will catch you on the next one.